The 1880s was a period of enormous growth in Melbourne. There was a huge amount of business activity, borrowing, and at that time Melbourne really was the commercial centre of Australia, all following on from the huge wealth caused by the gold rush.
There was an enormous influx of immigrants, gold seekers, and just people looking for a better life.
There was tremendous population pressure as well, and along with that went things like increasing levels of ill health. There were things like typhoid, which was causing real public concern, and a lot of that was due to the fact that there wasn't a working infrastructure for sewage disposal in Melbourne at that time.
The one thing you could say about Melbourne in the 1880s, the sewage system was still very much in the dark ages. It was the one thing that wasn't modern about Melbourne.
And a lot of the back lanes, which you still see in Melbourne today, they're not there because they're trendy places to put coffee bars. They're actually there because people needed them to access the sewage pans that had to be emptied out physically by hand.
In 1892, around about the time they began building the sewage system, Melbourne was plunged into the financial crisis. The land boom that had continued through most of the previous decade came to an abrupt end. Many of the city's workers were unemployed. About a third of manufacturing workers had lost their jobs, and so it provided much needed boost in employment. Thousands of people were employed actually constructing the sewers, including office workers and tradesmen and people who had other professions, took on menial labour just to make ends meet.
It was very important for people to build and manufacture things locally in Melbourne. There was very much a feeling that Melbourne was going to be the Chicago of the South and was going to be a major centre for manufacturing and production.
The concept was that if they supported local manufacturers, most of the cost of the equipment, even if it cost a few £1,000s extra initially, would be put into the local economy, so it would help to generate employment and the wages would be circulated around through the local economy and so on.
The introduction of the Melbourne Metropolitan Board of Works sewage system was a major step forward for Melbourne's health and also the quality of life. It really was the beginning of the process of going from the outdoor dunny to the modern indoor bathroom.
It would have been so nice to walk down a Melbourne street and not have to wade through any filth or someone else's filth. It would have made the whole city a much more pleasant place to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was an American who said, "The modern city as we know it owes its existence to the fact that you can flush a toilet on the 10th floor of a hotel, or an apartment house, or an office building, and in the normal course of events achieve satisfactory results."
World War II had a massive impact in Melbourne, particularly after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and then subsequently the Japanese bombing of Darwin, when people suddenly realised that Melbourne was vulnerable potentially.
Of course, being an essential industry and being close to the mouth of the river and Port Phillip Bay, the pumping station was particularly vulnerable.
There were immediate precautions put in place to build air raid shelters and to protect Melbourne's vital infrastructure against the possibility of air attack.
They also took the dramatic step of de-installing the most recent electric pumps that had only been installed in 1938. The logic being that if the pumping station was bombed and equipment was knocked out of operation, they could rush those pumps back and have them back installed and in operation within 36 hours. By the early 1950s, the pumping station had pretty much reached capacity and the original sewers were sort of bursting at the seams, so to speak.
I think it's significant and that it's a spot where we have this industrial building that has changed the lives in ways that people don't even know.
It's been an essential part of the city for the best part of 75 years, and interestingly, around a quarter of Melbourne's sewage today still flows through the Spotswood site on its way to Brooklyn each day, and those sewers that were built over a century ago are still an essential part of the city's sewage system today.